Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Aya and let's get started. Today I will share with you how I draw stylized wood. What I mean by stylized is that I will be drawing wood in my style. The first thing I will start by drawing is a plank or a piece of wood. It should look something like this. What I'd like you to notice is that I'm not gonna use any straight lines for this tutorial. I would color. The first thing that I will start to do is add dimension. This looks flat, so I will start adding dimension by face shading. So I added a new layer, set it to multiply, and I'm going to clip it. I'm using a brush from the Brush Galaxy website. Let me know if you're interested in having the links. It's called Chalky. Really, any brush would work. I really love to work with the hard airbrush. It works fantastic. But since I'm doing a lot of children's books, I'm using this textured chalky brush, and I can either use it full opacity to color stuff and it still has some interesting chalk gaps, or I would just decrease the opacity, use it to give me an interesting effect. I would show you exactly how I use it to achieve different looks and stuff. I would first start by using the lasso tool and start, as I told you, adding dimension to this plank of wood. So I would show the side of it. I would choose my chalky brush in a lower opacity. I'm going to work on my edges and make them look good, I guess. Please note how I erased some of the corners to make it look three-dimensional. The next thing I will do is add a new layer, again clipped, and again in multiply, and this one would be for the wood texture. So I would be adding some wood grain. Yes, that's the word. I will be choosing the hard airbrush that I told you guys I love, and I would choose the same color as the wood plank. This is how I shade almost anything. I don't really bother choosing color for the object that I will be shading. I would just pick the same color, and in multiply it automatically makes it darker. So I'm going to increase the brush size a bit. This one seems good for a wood grain. I will start drawing some interesting wood grain texture while I vary my hand pressure. I don't want it to be like this all the time. I would vary my hand pressure like that to kind of give a little realistic effect. This is really a process for trial and error, but you know, testing and trying different things and erasing or undoing and redoing stuff might help you a lot. So if I just drew a curve or a line that I feel doesn't really look good, I just undo, and I kind of have patience to redo it in, you know, a way that makes it look a little more realistic. And if I'm having really hard time, I would open up Pinterest and start looking for references. But since I'm doing a lot of wood paintings, I don't feel the need to do that. A trick that I love is that I make the grain kind of fracture on the sides. It makes it look even more realistic and adds dimension. So I would start adding some more lines. We don't really want any uniform gaps between the lines. So for now, I really love how that looks. It looks kind of realistic already, just missing really few finishing touches to look the best. So I'm just going to increase my opacity, make it feel a bit right, because I feel could use some finishing here. Next, I want to emphasize that this part is different from this part. Like if this was a real plank of wood, light would be hitting it differently according to the light source. So maybe the light source is right here or right here, so this part would be lit up more, or if the light source is right here, this side will be lit up more. I would just imagine that my light source is right here. So let's go ahead and darken this side. I'm going to my layer where I shaded this part. I'm going to select this part right there, and I'm going to choose a slightly darker brown, and I'm going again to reduce the opacity, pick my chalky brush, enlarge the brush size. And this trick is really lovely that you don't want small shading strokes. This will look a bit muddy, so you want a large brush size, and you go ahead and brush a layer of shadow. Next part is that I'm going to choose again the same color. This is exactly opposite to the multiply trick. I'm going to add a layer, but not in multiply, in screen blending mode. I'm going to choose the same color and screen will make it lighter. I use this trick to highlight anything that I'm not sure about the highlighting color, unless of course it was something obvious like the sun. The sun obviously will give off some kind of a yellowish reddish light. For this step, really, it doesn't matter what brush you use, it doesn't really matter. And I will just kind of do some lines right there. The point of these lines that are going to be right next to the dark multiply lines is that it's going to highlight this part, as if the light is hitting this plank. It's going to light this part, and these are grains or grooves, so the light can't really reach, but it can reach the top. So this part is going to be highlighted, and those grooves or grain lines are going to be darker because they are supposed to be tucked in, so the light can't really reach them, okay? So that's the point. Again, I'm kind of varying my pressure and I'm doing it right to the edge of the grains of the wood. Let's continue to do that and see how it looks when I'm done. Okay, now I'm going to switch to my hard airbrush. I feel it looks better to select it. And it's not on full opacity. You can experiment with that. I'm just like contouring the shading lines. So the next step is going to be that I choose a darker shade of brown and I go in and fill those wood grooves with a very dark brown to make them look sunken and kind of vintagey old piece of wood. I would create a new multiply layer. I'd like to keep things on different layers because definitely I would like sometimes to erase stuff. I don't want to erase the darker shade I create with erasing the older one. So this is why I keep creating new layers. I don't necessarily do this at all times, but this definitely helps if I have some extra layers on my hand, that I keep everything on separate layers. Now we would have to experiment with a super dark shade of brown. What I'm gonna do is move this multiply layer below my screen highlighting layer. I don't want my dark shade to go over my screen shade and create even a more deep looking grooves or wood grains, and around the corners I would just make sure I shade. Try to imagine things in a way that makes it look 3D in your mind so that you know where the shading should go. At this point I want to make this part look like a groove, like the plank of wood actually separates in here. So the very dark line goes right in between screen and first multiply layer. I really hope you understand what I'm gonna say, because I'm not sure I understand it, so let's just see if I can explain it. This piece of wood right here, this ring of wood, kind of covers the shade, the dark shaded brown part. However, this one is right in front of us as the eye seeing this view, so this part is going to be wider. It's going to be shaded in darker color and in a wider space, I guess. Let me know in the comments if you got what I'm saying. Do you see that the dark part makes the grooves look more dimensional and more realistic? I've done the rest of the stuff. I left some places without darkening the grooves. I feel this is what gives it organic look. So the next thing, this is something I do whenever I color anything, any element, I would add a general multiply layer on top of everything and obviously clip mask it to the main object. Then I'm going to choose my original color and I use a chalky brush for this, like the small chalk mono lettering brush, and I make it very wide. Do you see that? It's very wide. I reduce the opacity to about 20% and I widen my brush and I go ahead and just add a little gradient. Do you see how this looks? First off, it creates a texture that is lovely and it also reduces the flatness of the piece. It makes the piece not look flat. So if I'm coloring a face, I would throw on a multiply texture layer like this and I would do it like a gradient. Let me show you. Okay, do you see this? This is from a children's book that I'm working on, and do you see the girl's hand? I thrown some texture right here with a very wide or big sized brush. You see the hand, the mom's hand right there has no texture. Feels kind of drawn. This one feels a bit finished. I added the same texture to the dress, and this trick kind of makes my art looks finished, I guess. Okay, so that is that. Then I would go to my base layer and start erasing some of the parts to make the wood look correct. Those parts in between the grooves, I would just like give them a notch, erase just a tiny bit. Okay, all done with the notches. Probably the last thing, hopefully, I'm going to choose the original wood color in Multiply, and I'm going to use the same chalky brush, and I'm simply going to create some textured lines, like from signs that the piece of wood is kind of having wear in it. It really doesn't have to make sense or to be in a specific way, it just has to be random, expressing different scratches that this piece of wood has been going through. And that is it, you guys. This is how I create a stylized piece of wood. I hope you guys found this tutorial helpful. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and maybe leave me a comment telling me which part you found most helpful, which parts you would like me to focus on furthermore. Just any feedback you would like to let me know of. Thank you guys for watching, and bye.